now is Arash Azizi. He is the author of The Shadow Commander. He's joining us from Chicago. Paint us a picture of what life is like in Iran today for the average Iranian.
You see, people usually compare their lives to the expectations that they've had and the expectations that they remember from years ago. And on that scale, the Iranian life has unbelievably decreased in a scale in the last 10 or 15 years. The salary that people made because of the collapse of the Iranian economy means very little. Tons of people can't find jobs in the field, and they have a government that kills them on the street. As we've seen, more than 100 people have been killed in the last 2 weeks during the protests. This is a government that denies them most basic rights, especially to women, of course, who are denied rights from doing such random activities as smoking hookah or singing, which is illegal. And also, of course, they have to cover their head and all their body except for their wrist when they come out of the house. And it's also a government that denies them any political participation. There's no meaningful elections in Iran anymore. And of course, economically, it's a country cordoned off from the world, really. So the heaviest sanctions in history, which are caused by the behavior of the Iranian regime. So Iran really, I've been saying that for a while, Iran has been having its worst time in 100 years.
Right. You know, it's interesting because we know that there have been protests after protests. I mean, waves, we saw them in 2019. But the question is why her death specifically triggered so much unrest right now? What was it about this specific story that took people over the edge?
I think the thing that was really important in it was that people felt like this could have been anybody's sister or anybody's wife or anybody's niece. Mahsa Amini was a 22-year-old. She was from Kurdistan, from the city of Sakhez, and she was visiting Tehran, and they took her in this morality police and they killed her. Now, what do you say? This could have been anyone, because who are the sort of people who are stopped because they're not wearing the proper hijab? Just anyone. Even if you're from a super religious family, in fact, even if you're a super religious pro-regime family, you have a cousin who doesn't wear properly, who could have been stopped and killed. So it was this brazenness, right? It's this brazenness of a group in power that does whatever it wants. And did they apologize? Did they come and say they're going to put 1%? They didn't do any of that, right? And Ayatollah Khamenei gave a speech today for the first time in two weeks. And who did he blame the protests for? The United States and Israel. It's this kind of thing. It's this sort of brazen, shamefaced lack of accepting any responsibility that's brought people out.
So we know, obviously, beyond this, the economic situation in Iran is pretty much devastating. The cost of living is out of control. The level of poverty out of control. The question is, are these protests actually going to make an impact? Are we going to see any change in policy, any change in leadership as a result of them?
Well, the protests are beginning of a revolution, according to themselves. They shout for the death to Khamenei and an end to the regime. And of course, yes, if they are able to bring, if at some point this revolution is successful and we are to bring about a change in the government, all Iranians believe that, all Iranians who support this movement, which is the majority of Iranians, believe that Iran can have a very different economy and can have a very different economic relationship with the world. But will the government policies change enough as a result, if anything short of a revolution? I don't see it, as I gave you the example of the speech of the leader today, because the playbook of Islamic Republic is never to say, okay, maybe people are right, I'm going to change a couple of things. And what are they going to change anyways? Now, the question of whether they'll give concessions in the nuclear talks, which have been stalled since last month, and try to get the deal back and have the sanctions lifted in order to get more money in their economy to sort of save their own skins, that is a possibility. And I don't know what will people's reaction to that be. Probably very rejecting and very unhappy. In other words, they would be unhappy if the West sort of agrees to a deal with Iran now, just as the government is killing people. But it's not impossible that they would want to look for a concession there as a result of the movement in Iran.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us and breaking this down. Obviously, I think we're all hoping that there's going to be some sort of change that arises following this just horrifying death, and you know, finally seeing so many people take to the streets. It certainly seems to be having an impact on a lot of people online. So, all right, thank you for joining us.